Bismillah, alhamdulillah, wa salatu wassalamu ala rasulillah, amma ba'd. So inshallah we'll start with a few ayat from the Quran. And if you want to follow, this is Surat Al-Araf. So it is surah number 7. And the ayat are verses 175 up till 178. Inshallah. So I'll read first and then we'll do some reflection on these ayat, inshallah. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم واتل عليهم نبأ الذي آتيناه آياتنا فانسلخ منها فأتبعه الشيطان فكان من الغاوين ولو شئنا لرفعناه بها ولكنه أخلد إلى الأرض واتبع هواه فمثله كمثل الكلب إن تحمل عليه يلهث أو تتركه يلهث ذلك مثل القوم الذين كذبوا بآياتنا فاقصص القصص لعلهم يتفكرون ساء مثلا القوم الذين كذبوا بآياتنا وأنفسهم كانوا يظلمون من يهد الله فهو المهتدي ومن يضلل فأولئك هم الخاسرون. So these few verses from Surah Al-Araf, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us about a person, a man, and in some narrations, a lot of it is taken from the people of the book, because this story is also mentioned in the Bible. And there's a man by the name of, in Arabic, Balaam or Balaam bin Baur, and in English it's Balaam. So you find that story in the Bible. However, there are some variations. So this man was a pious man, a very pious man, and he was knowledgeable. He was alim. He was a alim. He was a scholar. And also he was mustajab al-da'wah, meaning that his prayer, his supplication, his dua was answered by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And some say that he knew Ismullah al-A'zam, that he knew the one name of Allah, the one name that if you call upon that name, Allah will answer your dua. And we know this is also true in our religion, in Islam. And some scholars say this is Ismullah al-A'zam is Allah itself, that name, or Al-Hayyul Qayyum, that is mentioned in 3 times, Surah Al-Baqarah, Surah Al-Imran, and Surah Taha in the Quran. So this man was a pious man, and he was knowledgeable as well, and he was well respected amongst his people. But then he was put on a trial. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tested him, because a lot of people pretend to be good people, to be pious people, to be knowledgeable. So it was, and there are different narrations. One narration said that Musa and his people were approaching. And the people of this person, Balaam, some say he's from the giants. It's people that existed at that time who were fighting Moses and the children of Israel. So they came to him and said, we want you to make dua against Musa. Like we want you to supplicate and pray for the destruction of Moses and his people. And initially, this man said, no way. Moses is a prophet. He's a great prophet. How can I make dua against a prophet? They kept insisting. And in some narrations, it says that he was paid, he was bribed, he was given a lot of money until he listened and he made the dua. Now, it says that the dua, in fact, every time he made a dua against Musa, it turned the other way around. He could not articulate the prayer. He ended up praying for Musa, for Moses and his people. So instead of praying against Moses, he was praying for Musa and his followers. And then he realized, he said, I lost this life and the hereafter, because I'm not able to fulfill your demand. And at the same time, I know I violated my relationship with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. There's another narration that says that this man was actually from the tribe, from the followers of Musa. And Musa used to rely on him. So he was, again, a religious person, a pious person. He was a scholar. And Musa used to rely on him. He used to send him to the kings to invite them to Islam. And one time he sent him to the king of Midian, or Midian in English. And that king, again, bribed him, paid him a lot of money. And this man changed. He changed his religion. And he followed the religion of that king. So these verses, some scholars, again, say that they are related to this person or the incident. The Quran doesn't tell us. The Quran doesn't mention the name. He doesn't mention the incident. This is only from the interpretations, the commentaries of some Sahaba and some Tabi'een and some scholars. And some scholars like Muhammad Rashid Rida, he refuted that. And he said, we don't rely on stories from the people of the book. So that's a different opinion as well. So let us recite the ayat and try and understand some of the lessons and see how it is applicable to us today. How is it relevant to us? How is it applicable to us today? So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, وَاتْلُ عَلَيْهِمْ نَبَأَ الَّذِي آتَيْنَاهُ آيَاتِنَا. Now, utlu is like tilawa. What is tilawa? Anyone? Reading? Is it only reading? Understanding? Telling a story? Tilawa actually is reading with repetition. And the purpose of that repetition is to reflect and understand. That is the definition of tilawa. And this is why we say tilawatul Quran. When you read other material, even when you read hadith, we don't say tilawat al-hadith. We only say tilawat al-Quran, because it is the Quran that we recite over and over again in order to understand and reflect upon. So that is the meaning of tilawa. وَاتْلُ عَلَيْهِمْ نَبَأَ. What is Naba? We know there is a chapter called Naba, Surat al-Naba. Naba is any important news. So khabar is a piece of news. It's any kind of news. Naba is important news. So when you see Naba, when you hear Naba, that's important, so you have to pay attention. That's the idea here. Naba alladhi ataynahu, the one who was given, the one we gave our ayat. Again, we talked about ayat before. We said ayat is or are the signs of Allah. And the signs of Allah here, it could mean the knowledge, it could mean the book at that time, the Torah, or the book that was revealed. So this man was given the signs, he was given the knowledge, he was given the knowledge of the book, and he was given the knowledge about Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, about God. فَانْسَلَخَ مِنْهَا. So yes, he was given this knowledge, but then what happened? إِنْسَلَخَ مِنْهَا. Now the word salakha, if you look at it in Arabic, it is literally, it means to skin something. Salakha is to skin something. And here, in salakha, some scholars said it is referring to the act of a snake. You know, a snake, it sheds its skin. It does that sometimes. What it does, it comes out of its skin. It sheds its skin. So that is the meaning of insalakha. But what is it to do with this, context? What is it talking about? So this man, when he left the religion, when he left the knowledge and the guidance from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and he preferred a cheap price, like, he was given money or whatever, or status. It's like he came out of his clothing. It's like he took off his clothing. Now that tells us a lot of things. It tells us this man, and many people like him, that he did not really believe inside. Like really the belief and the iman was not really inside him. It was just like something he wore on his body. Just like a skin on a snake. It's outer, it is external. It is not internal. And therefore it is easy to take off. Now many people, this is how they deal with religion. And this is why the scholars have said that al-iman ma waqara fi as-sadr wa saddaqahu al-amal. True iman is the one that settles in the heart. It is not something that you take off anytime you want. It is not like something external. It is really deep. It has to go deep inside. ما وقر في الصدر وصدقه العمل. And it also has to be justified. It has to be validated by action. So it's not just a statement. It's not just some claim. Now we see many Muslims, the way they approach Islam is exactly like that. They look at Islam as a skin. It's like a superficial thing. They use it for certain things. They use religion to get to something. Or they use it in some occasions. Like we are Muslim, yeah, we go to Eid, we have these Eid parties, we have certain events like maybe a Mawlid here and a wedding there, and we show up and we dress like Muslims, so we have this, thobe and abaya and topi, whatever you call it, kufi, and this is Islam. And I tell you, many people obsess about external appearances. Now, of course, Islam is after modesty. And there's certain regulations. For example, women, they have to cover their hair and so forth. But to be obsessing about the external appearance on the expense of the internal faith and iman and knowledge is a big mistake. And that usually happens, to these people that they come out of their religion. They leave the religion because after all, it was only a clothing. It was something outside. And since I mentioned clothing, I want to, mention the fact that the Prophet ﷺ never sought to, look different from his people. If you were to examine the clothing of the Prophet ﷺ, it would have looked almost exactly like the clothing of Abu Jahl and Abu Lahab and all these mighty kafir, these mighty unbelievers. But the Prophet gave us some guideline. For example, he told us that we should not seek to look like other people. Like if some other people have a unique dress, like some religions, they dictate a very specific dress. If you're a Buddhist, maybe you wear something orange, for example, or you might wear, some people, if you belong to some Christian denominations, they wear, a black robe with some red, or maybe a long hat. So those we're not supposed to do. You cannot go and imitate something that is unique to another religion. That's one guideline. The other guideline is the dress has to be modest. It cannot be too tight, even for men. It should not be too tight, too revealing to the aura. You cannot do that. So as long as we follow these guidelines, we should not obsess about the external appearance, especially at the expense of the internal appearance. So we can see now, we can differentiate two types of people. The people where iman mixes with them. Like when I read some of the description of some Muslim scholars, they say اختلط العلم بلحمه ودمه, that the knowledge mixed up with his body, his blood. It became part of him. This is how knowledge should be. It should not be a skin like this person. This man, knowledge was outer. It was like a skin. And this is why it easily came off. فانسلخ منها. فأتبعه الشيطان. So what happens next? Now you notice here, it is not Allah who's causing that. It is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Of course, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is behind everything. But it is this man's decision to do that. انسلخ. He decided to do that. فأتبعه الشيطان. So shaitan followed him until it caught up with him. This is the meaning of أتبعه. يعني تبعه حتى أدركه. It's mixed into, it's two words in one. تبعه أدركه أتبعه. So it's like shaitan is after each and every one of us. Every one of us. So imagine shaitan is going after all of us. And this is true. Shaitan wants to get all of us. He's after us. But when you get away from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, get away from the knowledge, get away from the religion of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, it will catch up with you. That is the difference. So here, فَأَتْبَعَهُ الشَّيْطَانِ يعني أَدْرَكَهُ. It caught up with him. And it seized him. It controlled him. And of course, the result, فَكَانَ مِنَ الْغَاوِينَ. He became corrupted. He became corrupted. وَلَوْ شِئْنَا لَرَفَعْنَاهُ بِهَا. Now here Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is telling us, if we willed, we could have raised him with that knowledge, with these ayat. And we know from the hadith or from the statement of Umar radiallahu ta'ala anh, that this book, Al-Quran, يَرْفَعُ بِهِ أَقْوَامًا وَيَضَعُ بِهِ آخَرِينَ. That Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala raises people with this Quran. If you take this Quran correctly, you understand it, you memorize it, you act upon it, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will raise you in this life and the hereafter. يَرْفَعُ اللَّهُ الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا مِنْكُمْ وَالَّذِينَ أُوتُوا الْعِلْمَ دَرَجَاتٍ. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in the Quran, He said, He will raise the people of belief and those who are given knowledge. And He will raise many, many levels. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is powerful and He's able and capable of raising this man. He's able to raise his levels. But what happened? وَلَكِنَّهُ أَخْلَدَ إِلَى الْأَرْضِ. But it is not up to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, it's up to you. It's your decision. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala does not force you. And this actually is a good refutation for the people who say, well, how come God, forces us to do evil? Or how, they blame Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala basically. They're blaming God for their mistakes. And here Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying, no, this is not the case. It was His choice. It was His decision. Because He did the following. وَلَكِنَّهُ أَخْلَدَ إِلَى الْأَرْضِ. And basically Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is telling us, Allah could create guidance in you. He's able to force you to be guided. He could make all of you believers. وَلَوْ شَاءَ لَرَفَعَهُ بِهَا. He could have done that. But it's up to you. It's your decision. And His decision was what? وَلَكِنَّهُ أَخْلَدَ إِلَى الْأَرْضِ. He chose this earth, meaning this lowly life. Meaning, He chose this materialistic life over everything else. Now we know Islam has a much better option. It has a much better plan for us. Because Islam offers us both, this life and the hereafter. And this is why we make in the dua, رَبَّنَا آتِنَا فِي الدُّنْيَا حَسَنَةً وَفِي الْآخِرَةِ حَسَنَةً. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to give us good in this life and the hereafter. But this man, what he did, he put all his eggs in one basket, in the basket of this life. So أَخْلَدَ إِلَى الْأَرْضِ, he was clinging to this earth. And earth here means it's a symbol of the materialistic life. So what's going to happen now? وَلَكِنَّهُ أَخْلَدَ إِلَى الْأَرْضِ وَاتَّبَعَ هَوَاهُ. And he followed his whims and desires. فَمَثَلُهُ كَمَثَلِ الْكَلْبِ. Now this is a parable. It is a parable. So his example, his analogy, the analogy is like a dog. Now, when we talk about a parable, we have to look at what is similar. So we're going to talk about what is similar here. It doesn't mean that he's similar to the dog in every aspect. And it's something we have to be aware of whenever we mention a parable. If I say, Ali is like a lion, it doesn't mean he has a tail and everything, right? Or a mane. It means he is courageous. It means he is powerful. He's tough, etc. So when I say Ali is like a lion, this is a parable. That is the meaning of a parable. The Quran has many parables. So we have to understand the meaning of a parable. It does not mean that they're identical. It doesn't mean that they're similar in every possible angle. So what is the similarity here? So this type of people, فَمَثَلُهُ كَمَثَلِ الْكَلْبِ. It's like a dog. إِن تَحْمِلْ عَلَيْهِ يَلْهَثْ أَوْ تَتْرُكْهُ يَلْهَثْ. إِن تَحْمِلْ عَلَيْهِ يعني تهجم عليه. حَمَلَ عليه. It's like to attack. Like you run toward a dog trying to scare him off. That is حَمَلَ عَلَيْهِ. And there's also the possibility that hamala, that to carry something on it. But usually you don't carry something on a dog. So that's not a likely scenario. So here Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying, the example of this dog, it is panting all the time. Yalhath. Lahatha is to pant. Dog is always panting. What is panting is basically to breathe heavily, quickly, while making a sound and sticking your tongue out. This is panting, right? Lahatha is to breathe quickly, heavily, and to stick your tongue out and to make a sound. That is panting. And that is lahatha in Arabic. Now usually, you do that if you are like running, or in some animals when they're thirsty, they do that. But for the dog, they're panting all the time. That is the difference with the dog. This is why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala picked the dog. For this parable, He picked the dog because it has this characteristic that it is panting on a regular basis. It doesn't matter. They're running, not running. They're thirsty, not thirsty. It doesn't matter. They're always panting. So it says, إن تحمل عليه يلهث أو تتركه يلهث. So if you're attacking him, attacking the dog, chasing the dog, or you leave it alone, it's always going to pant. It's not going to make a difference. So what is the similarity here? Well, some scholars mention that the one who's after this dunya, the one who's after this life, and this is all they do, and no matter if they were like rich or poor, they're always concerned about this life. And they obsess about the small nitty-gritty details of this life. They want to have it all. And nothing is ever enough. They can be so rich, filthy rich as we say. They have, maybe multiple houses, big mansions, 4-car garage, 8 bedrooms. They're always looking for more, and it's never enough. And they're always worried that we're going to lose all this money. Maybe I'm going to lose my business. Maybe I'm going to, lose, and my stocks will dive, and I'm going to lose all my money. So they're always obsessing about their wealth. And they're always worried. So basically here, it means that just like the dog is panting all the time and is always after something, these people are always after something, and they're always worried. And they're never satisfied. And it doesn't matter if they get a lot of money or a little bit of money, it's the same thing, just like the dog. They're always panting. It doesn't matter what the condition around them. So that is one of the best explanations of this ayah, or this parable with the dog. And this is a really sorry state to be in. And this is a big advice to all of us. And I tell all of us, including myself, if you're about this life, if you're gonna, especially the young people, if you're planning your life ahead and all you care about is this life, you're gonna be miserable. You're gonna be depressed. You're gonna be sad. And nothing will ever satisfy you. And you're always gonna be worried, always gonna be concerned. You make $1 million, you're worried, well, someone else is making $10 million. Someone else is a billionaire, and I'm only a millionaire. And you're worried, I'm going to lose all this money. They're going to come and take it from me. They're going to take it and snatch it away from me. This is actually a big concern to rich people, that someone will come and take their money away. And it never ends. And, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala told us in a different ayah, which is similar. مَنْ أَعْرَضَ عَنْ ذِكْرِي فَإِنَّ لَهُ مَعِيشَةً ضَنْكَ. If you turn away from the revelation, from the guidance of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, because a lot of people say, why do I need Quran? Why do I need guidance? Why do I need Islam? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is telling us, if you turn away from me, you turn away, fine. You turn away from the Quran, from my mention, my remembrance, I promise you, you're going to have a miserable life. You're going to be controlled by shaitan, just like the ayat said. فَأَتْبَعَهُ الشَّيْطَانِ. Shaitan seized them. He took control of him. He sold his, as we say, he sold his soul to the shaitan, to the devil. And now he has full control of this person. And this is what you see around you. I mean, many people, you see, their life is dictated by shaitan. This is their whole life. They're controlled by people around them. They go into drugs, into alcohol, into women, womanizing, every possible, sin, every possible problem you can imagine. And that's it. After a while, I mean, yes, alhamdulillah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives us a lot of chances. But after a while, it becomes almost impossible to get away from it. So you don't want to go in that path. You don't want to make that mistake. Because here Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is telling you, I'll give you many chances, but you keep going away from me, and you this insilakh, you skin yourself from the religion, and you take it off, and you think you're cool, it could be over. It could be that shaitan seizes your soul. He'll take over you. And you're gone, you're corrupted, you're ghaween from the ghawun. And you become like a dog, panting all the time. And this is what you see around you, people in this hustle and bustle, as we say. People chasing after things that like mirages, really. Every day, people going, speeding in the morning, coming back in the evening, exhausted, waiting for the weekend. What are they going to do on the weekend? Well, they're going to spend all that money they made on the weekday. And they waste themselves. You know what I mean? And they look for these parties and drinking, and that's it. And it's like a vicious cycle. This is the example that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave us in the Quran. So these ayat are not just talking about Balaam, they're not just talking about Balaam, we have many Balaams today. And obviously many scholars have mentioned that this is also referring to the scholar who sells his religion to the kings and the presidents and so forth. Basically now, because the king is paying them some money, they're willing to give any fatwa that pleases these people in power. And we have also those people. We also have other types of scholars who will issue fatwas to please the common people, al-awam. They're people pleasers. So they're willing to issue the fatwa to please everybody, to keep their popularities. So they want to keep their popularity. They're a celebrity sheikh and he wants to keep his popularity, so he's willing to give a fatwa in order to please the people around him. So he does not lose his crowd, his following, his base. And that's another type. And really the scholars we want are the scholars of the truth. The scholars who want to tell the truth and not be afraid and be scared of what people are going to say about them. So there's a lot of benefit, a lot of lessons we can learn from these few ayat here. And this is such a strong parable, example, analogy. And we see here the two examples actually, the snake and the dog actually, these two. Each one has a characteristic that we can learn from. And finally Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, ذلك مثل القوم الذين كذبوا بآياتنا فاقصص القصص لعلهم يتفكرون ساء مثلا القوم الذين كذبوا بآياتنا وأنفسهم كانوا يظلمون. Another reminder that it is these people who made that decision. They are wronging themselves. Nobody is wronging them. You cannot come on the Day of Judgment and say, oh Allah, you misguided me. Oh Allah, you dictated or decreed that I'll be misguided. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, you are wronging yourself. I gave you the choice, I gave you the evidence, I gave you the revelation, I gave you guidance, and you chose not to follow it. It was your decision. And we saw this plenty of times in these ayat. It was the decision of this person or this personality, in fact. This is a personality, it's not just one person. So inshallah, that concludes our segment as far as the Quran or the reminder in the beginning. And now we can switch to fiqh. Any quick comments or questions about what we just talked about?